thank you to the Shevskis for hosting again Emunah every week. It's obviously it's a very important thing that everyone gets to hear different ways to look at the view of Hashem and the view of God, and more philosophical. I'm sure everyone has a different taste towards it. Tonight, though, I'd like to talk about a topic that I actually spoke about in my class at the Kollel. The class is called Intermarriage and Assimilation. And why this is very much intuitive with Emunah is because the Zohar tells us that Klal Yisrael, Torah, right? Torah, Raisa, Kitchubruhu. Yisrael, the Jewish nation, Torah, and Hashem, they're all one. And really the commentators explain, the Kabbalists explain, to really understand Hashem, to understand what God is all about, is really have to look into the Jewish nation through the eyes of the Torah. Through the eyes of the Torah, you have to look at the Jewish nation and really define what Jews are. And through defining what Jews are, you really be able to see a glimpse of a really deeper sense what truly the God essence is. So the lack of really understanding what a Jew is all about is really the culmination of intermarriage and assimilation. If one would know, as soon as we'll see how special we are in one way, then not necessarily this would be such a problem in today's society. It's a very dangerous topic to talk about. This is a very touchy topic. It's a very, I'm sure most of us here, not going to vouch for everyone here, including myself, has somewhere relatives that did assimilate and marry into the non-Jewish families. I myself have two first cousins that did, and it was boys that married to girls. So they're never, their children never be Jewish, and everyone's affected. And if it's not this, then it's definitely have relatives who are not even religious and don't even associate themselves as Jews, which is bad enough. And that's why it's a very touchy topic. People like to stay away from such topics. So I'm like the bad guy. I like to jump at such topics. And it's important for everyone to really get a good grasp on this and to see where the problem comes from, and really, and where can we grow from such a situation. There was it was called the Council of Federations, which is they would take statistics and a census of Jewish population every year. So in 1985, 1991, they took a census and they studied the whole assimilation quote-unquote problem, and discovered something phenomenal. That back then in 1991, there were around 5.6 billion Jews living in the world. Of 5.6 billion Jews, 40% of anyone under the age of 40 would associate themselves as more into the...
I think you mean 5.6 million in the United States.
Million, I'm sorry, probably million.
Yeah, United States.
United States. Oh yeah, no.
Because I think it's like 12 million in the whole Jewish world.
Right, correct. You're right, correct.
Yeah.
A little bit tired. I had a baby 4 weeks ago, so I'm still using that excuse. I'll use it for another year. Yeah, you're correct. 5.6 million Jews living in America, and from those, 40% of the age under 60. 40% under the age of. I'll tell you exactly. I have it on my phone. It's numbers. I think it's 40% of today's technology. You can do magnificent things. Let me see, where is it? I save all my classes. Those are my notes over here. Let's see. Right here. So it says from 5.6 million Jews, 2 million Americans live in a household identified as non-Jews. 60% of the Jews below 40 live in the house. Of those 2 million, live in households identified as non-Jews. 20% of Jews over the age of 60 also live in the household of identified as non-Jews. Now, this is the big punch. Before 1965, only 10% of Jews would marry, did so outside the Jewish community. Since 1985, which is 28 years ago, it rose to 52% who would intermarry. And I'm scared to know what the number is today. I'm terrified to know.
This is when, in which year?
1985. That was already hit 52%. I would be scared to know what would be the number today.
The question is why.
The question is why, exactly. The question is why, and really the biggest question is how do we, what can we do for our own selves to grow from such a phenomenon? And I think the reason why it's a dangerous topic, why it's a very, I would say, controversial, touchy topic, is because when we speak of intermarriage, we really confuse two concepts. They're really two distinct concepts, right? When we speak of intermarriage, we're talking about marriage, right? A union of two people that are unified. And we also speak about Jew and non-Jew. So really those are two distinct topics. They deserve a class and discussions on their own. The role of a Jew versus a non-Jew. What does God see in a Jew versus a non-Jew? What are the rules in life? What's the mission? That's a class on its own. On the other hand, there's also marriage is definitely one of the biggest discussions in Jewish philosophy, and that also deserves a class on its own. And it's very important. And to speak on such two topics and to intermingle them into one is really not doing justice. And this is why we get confused. It's really two separate topics, and really we have to attack each one separately. Now, we don't have so much time to really discuss at full length on each separate topic, whether it's marriage or the role of a Jew versus a non-Jew. But what I like to do is I like to give just a general concept, a general idea of what each one is and where we make the problem. Where does the problem come from? So regarding a Jew and a non-Jew. Now this is where it gets a little bit sticky. I'd like everyone to pay attention very strongly, and especially if you repeat it, you have to repeat it very well, and you have to count your words. And you should not have any emotional attachment, and it has to be a pure logic, especially if you're discussing with someone else this concept. The Ramchal writes in Derech Hashem, creates something phenomenal. And this is really the underlining factor. One of the deepest concepts of God's providence involves Israel and the other nations. With regard to their basic human characteristics, the two appear exactly alike. From the Torah's viewpoint, however, the two are completely different and are treated as if they belong to two completely different species. Jews and non-Jews are not alike. They're completely different. Now, right when I say this, people get very flustered. Because in today's society, when I say the word different, automatically I'm being prejudiced. Right away, I'm putting one down. If I say a man and a woman is different, I'm putting most likely the woman down. And that's today's society. That's that's ridiculous. Because if I tell you a color of a rainbow, and I speak of blue and orange and green and yellow, and I say that they're all different colors, I never said that yellow is greater than blue or orange. I just said that they're different. And no one could seriously tell me that a male and a female are one and the same. They're physically two different beings. And they're driven by two different things. Now, you want to know why? You want to know why God created such a thing? That phenomenon? It's a beautiful topic. We have to talk about it. But bottom line, you have to understand, men and women are different. Now, Kabbalistically, it makes more sense to say that a woman is more closer to God than a man. Because a woman, as we say in the bracha, Nasa Kritzoni, was made in the image already, the way that God wanted her to be made. More than that, women are more in touch with their feelings. They're more sensitive. They feel stronger. That's what Hashem is. Hashem is 13 attributes of God are sensitivity, feeling. Right? They can see the depth in a person. But truthfully, they're equal. Male and female are equal. And they both have certain obligations, certain missions they must take in order to fulfill God's will. Now we have to understand what each mission is. And why did God create a male and a female? I gave a class, my second class I gave here, a few months ago, I gave a man and woman, they're all men and women. But anyways, there's a real deep discussion to why there's a distinction. But bottom line, there's a distinction. And the same true when we refer to non-Jews versus Jews. They're different. The reason why they're different is because the souls of a Jew and the soul of a non-Jew manifest with different realms in the spiritual heavens. They come from different places. In the spiritual realm, they manifest in different places. It naturally means God has different visions for either of them. I'm not saying one is greater than the other. I'm not saying that one can't have a relationship with the other. It means that they're different. And we have to really be on the ball with that. Nothing wrong to be different. Different is not a bullying trait. Different is a good thing. Different is good. People love to be different. That's why we have fashion. Everyone wants to stand out and be different. Everyone likes to have their own color of hair, own style of hair. Everyone wants to be different. So there's nothing wrong. Just people are afraid to discuss it because right away get confused with the matter of prejudice. But truthfully, that's wrong. I'm not saying one's greater than the other. In fact, I'm just saying people are different. And therefore we have different goals. Maybe ultimately it's God's mission and it's God's goal. We want to bring a godly thing out to this world. But we may have different paths that have to be taken in order for this to happen. Right? When we attack a battle, a general just doesn't send out an infantry. He has a bunch of different types of infantries. Different angles to win a battle. It's the same idea with the world. There's different angles and everyone has a different job. Now regarding to marriage, where we get confused, bringing or relate the topic, the subject of relationship, we mix up with marriage. Marriage has no connection to relationship. We think marriage is relationship. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah that marriage is relationship. You see, in a secular society, marriage, you know what marriage is? Marriage is where I have my sweet 16 girlfriend. I finally have the courage to ask her out. And then we go to the movies. We become steady. If that goes well, we go to college, unless we find new girlfriends in college or boyfriends. We become steady with those. And then we take it to the next level, and we end up moving in together. And after a few years of living with one another, right, we build our relationship stronger and stronger. Our bond becomes more and more unified. And maybe in today's society, it's already normal to have a child before we get married. And we would experience a child before we get married. And our climax relationship is really there. And only by the climax of the relationship, that bond, that love to one another is so strong that we now have the courage to propose to our better half. And to say, will you marry me? And I will love you and I will cherish you for the rest of my life. But in the Jewish lens, and the Torah's perspective, that's not how we look at marriage. The word marriage, where is the word marriage? Anyone know what the word marriage in Hebrew? You know what the word for Hebrew marriage is? Kiddushin. Kiddushin is marriage. Where does Kiddushin come from? Which word? But what does Kadosh mean? Holy. Holy. What is holy? Sanctification. To be sanctified. We make Kaddish and we sanctify things. When we take the sacrifice, we sanctify, we elevate it. Marriage is elevation. It's growth. So naturally, in a Jewish Torah lens, what marriage is the beginning of a relationship, not the climax of a relationship. The couple barely knows each other. The idea is that they have common goals and they're driven by the same features, so now they can use the tools that are necessary that God gave them to now succeed and to really grow from those experiences. See, in the secular world, relationship, marriage, is relationship where it's a means in itself. That's all it is, it's relationship. In the Jewish perspective, in the Torah view, marriage, relationship is could be an end result or it could be just a means to something else. But it's not its own figure. It's really going somewhere. It's really, like I would say, it's like a pyramid. Right? You have two people that are two opposites. And as they climb up, they come closer to God, as they help each other grow, they actually they closer and bond with one another. That's really that's how the Kabbalists really give the picture towards it, the analogy. But today's society, what marriage is a relationship. There's nothing wrong in the Torah's perspective to have a relationship with a non-Jew. You could be good friends. You go to a ball game. You could go in Canada. We say we go to a hockey game together, right? Like we could do anything together. We could work together. We could be friends. There's nothing wrong. In fact, sometimes it could lead to Kiddush Hashem to one another. You can bring out the best out of someone, right? And to say that a Jew is better than non-Jew, that's not necessarily the case. You do definitely have non-Jews that are bad, right? They're terrorists, but you definitely have Jews that are terrorists and bad. Sadly, you have bad on both sides of the aisle, and you have great on both sides of the aisle, right? originally, Jews and non-Jews were created equal. Everything was done. Was humanity, and we begin to mix up this terminology between relationship and marriage versus Jew and non-Jew. Again, it's nothing wrong to have a relationship with a non-Jew.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
boy and girl or
Boy and girl,
it's gonna lead to something.
one second. I'm saying technically, you want to put fences around yourself. You want to put stringencies. You want to be a wise one and see what could end up. That could very well be. That you're right. Everyone has to judge their figure of imagination. But to be a coworker necessarily is not that could be wrong. To be friends with someone is nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. You have poker night, bowling night. Nothing wrong. Go with the group. It could be necessarily nothing. It could lead to not good things. Well, they have to be careful. Make sure it doesn't lead to those. Make sure you have a goal. But marriage is not a relationship. Right? Marriage is not a relationship. That's not what marriage is. Marriage is not a union of a contract where we collect income taxes together. That's not what marriage is. It's not about income taxes. What marriage is sanctification. And because it's sanctification, now we must know why. That's a good question. I give it to everyone who asks the question, why? Why is a good question. But bottom line is, since man and woman are different, and since non-Jews and Jews are different, each one has separate tools. Now the point is, each one can help the other one sanctify themselves. Through a relationship, you can sanctify yourself and grow from the relationship. Right? In fact, even it gets touchy with homosexuality today. The reason why it's wrong to marry the same sex is because bottom line is, a male doesn't have the tools that are necessary to help the other male grow. Right? In a male relationship, even in a female relationship, it's very easy. Right? You have common goals. Right? A woman loves to talk. They love to schmooze. Right? My wife always likes, why are you falling asleep, Shmuel? Like, why are you falling? Like, all day you're falling asleep. Like, the guys don't get it. Like, I don't know. So of course a girl would rather marry some other girl and schmooze all the time. And for a guy, like, I love to watch a football game. Like, tell my wife, like, to stop it. Like, I'll eat dinner when I want to eat dinner, but right now I want to watch the football game, and it would be much easier. But in a relationship like that, it's a subtle, it's a relationship. But in Judaism, marriage is kedushin, it's sanctification. We encourage arguments in Judaism in marriage. We want healthy arguments. We want differences that can work out healthy and therefore grow with one another. We want a serious discussions between spouses. They overcome each other. Hashem puts us in a battle. It's the Messiah. That's what the world's all about. It's about life. It's not escaping life. It's facing life and dealing with the issues that life has to challenge you with. And that's what marriage is. The woman has the tools that are necessary to really yank the guy out of his bed to go to chakras. And when I was in yeshiva my whole life, I could tell my roommate, wake me up for chakras. I never got woken up for chakras for some reason. But some reason, as soon as I got married, my wife just kicks me out of bed. I don't know what it is, but just women have the capability of just knocking their husband over the head. And the same true as a husband to wife. A husband has a pure bliss that can respect and honor his wife and show her dignity that can help her grow. And each one can help the other one grow. And this is why we want to attract the opposite sex. Each one can help the other one opposite. And there's the same concept between Jew and non-Jew. It doesn't say that one is better than the other. I'm not even coming close to that. What I'm all saying is difference. And because that Jews, you have to know why. What's the role of a non-Jew? But non-Jews are created with different tools, spiritual tools that Jews were created with. Different tools. So therefore, a Jew can't help a non-Jew fulfill his specific mission in life. Definitely, he can help the other one grow. He can inspire. These are all beautiful words. But their specific mission in life, what the end result, what God wants, the Jew has no tools necessary. It could be today, it'd be a little bit different. I don't want to get to that so much, but simply, it doesn't work that way. And for sure, a non-Jew doesn't have the specific tools that are necessary for a Jew to fulfill his mission. And each mission, in bottom line, is as equal. Because bottom line, God wants His name to be revealed. Now, it doesn't make difference how it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Mashiach will come. Right? End of days will happen. Time is ticking. So it will happen. So if a Gentile that that does the good that God wants him, that God commanded him to, and he does the way it's supposed to be done, he'll be rewarded. Just as if a Jew fulfills his potential. So really our problem really initiates from is that we mix these two terminologies. We mix between a Jew and a non-Jew. We get scared. We begin to now want to make distinctions because we automatically think that there's prejudice involvement, right? Some inferior, superior, but really that's not the case. And secondly, we don't even know what marriage is all about. So what we first must do is break down the two subjects. We first must talk about what's the reason why God created Jew and non-Jew, why God created that, and what's their mission. That's a class in itself. Now we have to know what marriage is. Marriage is not just a simple relationship. Marriage is much more deeper than that. There's a real relationship in marriage. In fact, I'll tell you, when I first got married, so I was in my head over shoulders, and one of my rabbis in yeshiva called me up, and he said, "No, so Shmuel, how's marriage?" I said, "Marriage is great." He said, he asked me, "Did you get into an argument with your wife yet?" So I said, "We were married for like 6 weeks, 7 weeks." He said, "No." I was like very proud to say that. And he told me I'm worried about it. So when are you going to finally open up to your wife? That's a real thing. It's a really deep thing. It's real. Because that's reality. It's good to have a serious, but you grow from it. As long as the mood is to grow, not to fall. Healthy. And everything has to be done in a very healthy environment. But again, to growth. And not to escape life. Those, again, are two distinct topics that we have to discuss. Now, once we understand completely what a Jew and a non-Jew is and what marriage is, and you'll understand with clarity why it doesn't work out well. Now, this is why logically it makes sense. But the thing is, so why don't we know it? Where did the world go wrong? Where did the world go wrong? What happened to society? What can we do about it? What lesson can we take from this? How are we going to grow from this? So, I'll tell you an interesting story. There's during the height of the communism, the Cold War, during the height, at the beginning, right after, I'm sure before Cold War, it was before even World War II. It was after the revolution, and the whole Europe. Everyone was fluctuating around this movement of communism. It was a strong movement, and Jews were swept by it. In fact, the founders of communism were Jews, right? Karl Marx and Trotsky. Right? Trotsky's name was Leib Bronstein, exactly. Leib Bronstein. These were Jews. And I'll tell you a cute story. When the original communists, they would only speak Yiddish amongst each other. And it's funny. They would fight for atheism. Communists built off atheism. Yeah, and they would speak Yiddish amongst each other.
I believe they tried to look at communism as a religion in and of itself.
Right. Could be, but
well,
you have to know what religion today, the terminology religion means a movement of where your passion lies. But that's not a real religion. Religion is God.
God, yeah.
Right. So I'm religious about this. Doesn't mean you believe in God. So and another interesting was another story was with Trotsky was with another Jews, and Stalin was in the room. Now later, Stalin killed Trotsky and all the whole crew. But Trotsky told the other guys he wanted to speak to them privately without Stalin there. So Trotsky said in Yiddish, "Wait for the guy to leave the room, and we'll make it 1 million. We'll have 1 million." So it's a phenomenal. And this one Jew approached the Chavetz Chaim, and he didn't understand how can this be? How can it be that there's such a movement that's really taking over the Jewish nation? And the whole movement was built opposite of Torah view. And they just fluctuate towards it. In fact, if anyone was Rabbi Kamenetsky, one of the past generation leaders of the Jewish nation, Jewry, he was when he came from the war, he became a rabbi in Toronto before he moved back to New York. So anyway, so when he was a Talmud in Slobodki Yeshiva in Belarus, and the Alt of Slobodki, his Rebbe, Reb Nossi Finkel, had to bribe him to keep him in. Imagine a leader who's going to be the future leader of the Jewish nation, one of the biggest tzaddiks, one of the biggest righteous people that millions of Jews seek advice, was about to fall to a communistic ideology, and he had to be bribed to be kept in yeshiva. Meaning to say that the Aleph Sabbath couldn't logically explain to him why it's wrong. He had to bribe him to keep him in. Like, what was this whole movement? So the Chavetz Chaim, he said there's a fascinating Gemara. Gemara says that every 70 years there's a star in the constellation that moves. It's a Gemara in Hari, so everyone wants to look it up. And it moves. It scatters. And it causes confusion amongst the captains on ships. Now, simply what this Gemara's Talmud means is that it's like a comet. So, back in the day, they would know where the North Star, that's north, and they would figure out from there what's south and east and west, and they knew their direction. But if you had a comet, you may think it's the north, but really it's the south because it's moving, and you would get confused. It would confuse you. That's a simple explanation to why the captains would get confused. But in a more deeper way, Chavetz Chaim said that when the Gemara usually uses a term called what 70 years, it refers to a lifetime, a person's lifetime. So he says that once in 70 years, there's always something that happens in society that's a shtus, that's completely irrational, and the whole world fluctuates after that, and just the ship is lost. That's basically, and this is what happened. It's just there was a completely not logical. I mean, just forget about the Jewish philosophy on communism. Just a more, any human being. I mean, the whole terminology of communism just doesn't make sense. So which is, you can have a discussion on its own, but there's no basis for it. So, and yet the whole world fluctuated after that. So he said that was the shtus of that era. It's interesting that when was the year that communism really took a rise? The revolution, what year was that? 1918, right?
1917.
The beginning, but towards the end, when it was 1918, it was, right? That's when they wiped out the Tsar. So, and what was the fall? The beginning of the fall? 1989. How many years is that? 70 years. Happens to be interesting. Chavetz Chaim died in 1933, 50, 60 years before communism ever fell. Interesting. But, I don't know if anyone knows that Rabbi Akiva Tatz, a big speaker today. So he once spoke to a group of individuals in Lakewood. When I was back in Lakewood, it was like a Kiruv seminar. I spoke to Kiruv. So he asked them, he said this, or we asked them, what's today's ideology that everyone's running after? So he said the star of today is assimilation. So, that's all he told me. But I really want to, what I'm doing is I want to get a step further and really explain what he meant. There's a lot of depth to what he said. And it's really the problem of today's society, is this star. I'll explain. As I said about communism, communism, Jews then, they had something in their blood. It wasn't explainable. Scientifically, you can't explain the feeling that you have that you're Jewish. My parents came from the Soviet Union. They're able to tell me. I'm sure you guys speak to Mira and Goya, and you could ask them. They could tell from a whole group of people who's Jewish, who's not Jewish. There's something from the generation. They're able to look into a crowd and be able to feel who's Jewish and not Jewish. I remember my sister. She's she's a lot cured for Russians. So her and her husband made a huge Shabbaton where I'm from, in Darwin, Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia. There's over 40 Russian kids came. My grandmother, she was there, and she couldn't stand this one girl. She said, "I'm telling you, she's not Jewish." And I just feel it. And happens to be, they look into her and they found that she wasn't Jewish. She tried to sneak into the Jewish school for whatever reason. Just the old generation felt it in their blood. Scientifically, can you prove it? No. To compare it today is like we don't know the difference between humanity and animals, like mammals. We treat it one. We're just all biologically the same, like from the same, like carnivores or herbivores. We're just all the same. There's a funny story about a person who was on a plane, and this lady next to him was eating. She was eating vegetables. So he says, "Are you religious?" She says, "Are you Jewish?" Because I think you eat para, maybe because you don't eat kosher. She says, "No, I'm religious, but I'm vegetarian religious. I don't eat other animals." So this person, I don't know what the person answered, but if I don't know if it would be the right answer to say. I'll give off the right impression, but definitely what I felt is to tell this person, "What do you mean? Other animals eat other animals. I mean, you're comparing yourself to an animal. Other animals eat other animals. That's a normal thing in life, you know what I mean?" But we don't see a difference. So we have, today's society, in the American side, we have married, now we have one child and one dog. I mean, that's perfect life. I mean, dog is our child, and that's just, we don't feel it. But the old generation, if you ask 50, 60 years ago, you tell a person, is a dog any connection to a human? They'll tell you, you're out of your mind. But we lose the sensitivity. Is it scientifically, is it there? No, it's not there. But it's something in the blood. The Jews themselves, the communists themselves felt that they spoke Yiddish. If one communist would not like the other communist's remarks, he would tell the other communists in Yiddish, "What's happens to episode like a guy? Why you speaking like a guy? Like why you speaking like that's how he talked to him? Like if one communist to another communist, like what's happens to a guy? Why are you like talking like a non-Jew?" Like, they felt it. There was something different about it. And today we don't have that feeling. In today's society, we're missing such a feeling. But really, where does this come from? I mean, that's really what it is. You know, this happens to everyone. This happened to me a number of times. You know, when I was in Yardley, I was a rabbi there, and it happens everywhere. This is like not ending. I mean, every rabbi will tell you this happens to him quite a few times. Where a woman, a mother, will go over to him and say, crying, and say, "Rabbi, please help me. My son's about to marry a non-Jew." And like, well, like, what am I supposed to say? So like one time I told a lady, like, really, I asked her, like, I was really fed up with it. Like, every time it's happened, I told her, like, what's wrong with marrying a non-Jew? So what do you mean? She's not Jewish. I said, do you keep kosher? She said, no. Do you keep Shabbos? No. So what connection, when's the last time you prayed to God? Never. It's like, so what connection do you have to Judaism that if she's rich, she's cute, and she's pretty, and she's going to be successful, and she's loving you, what's wrong with her? So, but she's not Jewish. I said, you understand? Your son looks at you as you have something mentally blocking. Something you snapped. But you look at your son as like he's a heretic. And that's, what's the fine line? The fine line is that feeling that you had. And that feeling is gone. But really, where does this feeling come from? So what time is it? I still have a couple minutes.
Okay, so.
You want me to continue?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.